All right, welcome to the Explainer. So, OpenAI just dropped a whole bunch of huge announcements. But here's the thing, it's not really about the shiny new models this time. It's about a massive shift in how we actually use AI. I'm calling it the Great Simplification, and honestly, it might just change the entire game for how software gets made.
So what's the big problem OpenAI is really trying to fix here? Well, it boils down to this quote from Sam Altman. We're all super excited about AI agents. You know, AI that doesn't just talk, but actually does stuff for you. But the reality is almost none of them are actually being used in the real world. Why? Because building them is just way too hard.
Okay, so how do you fix a problem like that? Well, OpenAI's first big answer is aimed right at the builders, the developers, and businesses out there, and it's called AgentKit.
The easiest way to wrap your head around AgentKit is to think of it like Squarespace or Wix. But instead of building a website, you're building an AI agent. The whole point is to tear away all the complicated coding and messy backend stuff. It lets pretty much anyone take an idea and turn it into a real, working AI tool, and do it fast. We're talking about lowering the barrier to entry in a huge way.
And this is where that whole simplification idea really hits home. AgentKit takes what used to be a super complex development process and breaks it down into just 4 simple steps. First, you just design what you want your agent to do in a visual, no-code builder. Then, you hook it up to your data. You know, stuff you're already using like Google Drive or Dropbox. Step 3, you set up your safety rules and brand guidelines. And finally, you just embed your shiny new agent into any app you want using this other tool called ChatKit. That's it.
And let's be really clear here. This is not some toy for hobby projects. AgentKit is built from the ground up for serious enterprise-level use. You can see it right in the features, right? It's got connectors for all the big business tools, Dropbox, SharePoint, you name it. And security's baked right in. We're talking built-in jailbreak detection to stop people from misusing it, and features to make sure sensitive info, like customer data, never, ever leaks. This thing is designed for the real world, for high-stakes business. Okay, so that covers the builders. But what about the rest of us, the people actually using this stuff? Well, let's flip over to the other side of the coin and talk about the user experience. And that's where this new idea, apps and ChatGPT, comes into play.
This slide just perfectly captures the change. Think about the old way, right? It was all about this constant, annoying app switching. You'd be talking to ChatGPT, get an idea, and then you'd have to stop, go find the Zillow app, open it up, and start your search all over again. The new way? Forget all that. The apps now come directly to you, right inside the conversation. So just imagine this for a second. You type a simple sentence, just plain English, but instead of ChatGPT just spitting back a bunch of text, boom, an interactive map from Zillow pops up right there in your chat. And from there, you can just keep the conversation going to narrow things down. The app isn't a place you go to anymore, it's just part of the chat.
And believe me, they are not starting small with this. Just look at the launch partners. We're talking big names. Booking.com, Canva, Expedia, Figma, even Spotify and Zillow. This isn't some little experiment. This is the start of a whole new ecosystem where the tools you use every day are just there, inside one single conversation.
Okay, but with any massive new idea like this grand vision, well, it's not a slam dunk. There are some really big hurdles to clear and some even bigger questions that OpenAI is going to have to answer. First up is the classic discovery problem. Remember the early days of Alexa and Google Home? There were thousands of skills you could install, but nobody knew what they were or how to find them. It's the same potential issue here. If you've got a marketplace with thousands of these new agents, how on earth are you supposed to find the one you actually need? And if you're a developer, how do you get your cool new tool noticed in that sea of apps?
And that leads us to the next huge question, developer trust. Because, look, this isn't OpenAI's first rodeo with an App Store concept. Their last attempt, the GPTs, kind of fizzled out. They never really took off, and frankly, most of them just lingered in obscurity. So to make this work, OpenAI has a big job ahead of them. They have to convince developers that this time is different and that this new platform isn't headed for the same fate.
Now, it's really important to understand that these announcements about AgentKit and apps, they didn't just happen in a vacuum. They're all part of a much bigger, much more deliberate strategy to build out a complete end-to-end AI ecosystem.
Yeah, AgentKit was the headliner, but it wasn't the only thing they announced. They also finally gave developers API access to GPT-5 Pro, their most powerful model. They made their AI coding assistant, Codex, generally available. And they released these new, smaller, super efficient models. See the pattern? Every single one of these updates is another piece of the puzzle, another tool in the toolbox for developers to build bigger, better, and faster. And one of the biggest ways to empower builders is to make things affordable. Just look at this chart. These new mini models are an absolute game changer on cost. We're talking about a 70% price drop for real-time voice and an 80% drop for image generation. That's massive. All of a sudden, a whole world of cool, real-time apps that were just way too expensive to even think about building are now totally on the table.
So, when you step back and put all these pieces together, what does it all mean? Well, it's a really fundamental change in how we should think about AI. We're moving away from this idea of AI as a single, giant, know-it-all chatbot and moving towards the idea of AI as a toolbox. A versatile, powerful toolbox filled with all kinds of specialized, easy-to-make little apps and agents ready to tackle any job you can dream up.
And all of this leaves us with one final, absolutely massive question. If building a powerful piece of software really becomes this easy, if anyone, and I mean anyone, can build a custom AI agent with just a few clicks, what does that mean for the future of software as we know it? That's a question we're all going to be watching unfold. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.